coefficient that is called coefficient of friction or frictional coefficient that we label mu. And the load will be related to the normal force. So my Fx max will be equal to mu S n. N is the normal force. Sometimes we label, instead of labeling Fn, we can label N, capital. This means the normal force. Like tension is capital T, N is capital N. Also, you can find this force, which will be equal to the minimum force applied on the opposite axis, minimum force applied to move the object, using the Newton's first law. This Fx max can be either the minimum force you need to apply to move the object or mu S Fn. Either way, you can find it. And finally, the third one, the friction kinetic, can be found if you have the coefficient of friction kinetic and the normal force. This formula, it is found experimentally. Most of the time, the coefficient of friction can be found experimentally. Doing an experiment, you can find the coefficient of friction. We will do that experiment as well to find the coefficient of friction in class between two surfaces. Also, you can find this using either the Newton's first law or the Newton's second law, depending if it's moving at constant velocity or if it is accelerating. So even that the force of friction kinetic, the object is moving, even though you can find it using the Newton's first law. Under what situation? When the object is moving at constant velocity. Right? Good. This is the theory behind friction. Let's do problems. The problem. Let's say you are pushing an object with a force given. The mass is given. The angle with respect to the horizontal is given. The coefficient of friction is given. The static and the kinetic. For instance, this force 40 Newton. This angle 37 degrees. The mass 10 kilograms. The coefficient of friction 0.2. The coefficient of static friction 0.3. Sorry, my bad. Always the static friction have to be greater than the kinetic. Find the acceleration, find, that's it, the acceleration of this object. This is a typical question. Actually, let's say that it's not moving yet. So this force I cannot provide, I have to find it. In A, find the minimum force to move the object. B, if the force that you applied is greater than the minimum force, find the acceleration. This is the question. So find the minimum force to move the object. B, if once we find the force minimum to move the object under those conditions, angle 37 degrees, the mass 10 kilograms, the coefficient of static friction 0.3, find the minimum force to move the object in part B. So find the acceleration for a force greater than that minimum force. Okay, let's start with the part A. First, we need to draw the free body diagram for the situation. This force, always you put it off the axis. Normal force, Fg, the x component, the y component, that's it, and friction. That is the free body diagram. So, in other words, you are doing this and moving the object. We want to find the minimum force. The minimum force is this, to move the object. So what will be the forces acting along x when you are not moving the object? Along x. Fx, f cosine theta, minus. The friction, what type of friction?
Static.
What type of static? First case, second case. If it's the minimum, if you are looking for the minimum force to move the object, will be the first case or the second case? Can you see the second case, what's said here? Fx max always will be equal to the minimum force to move the object. So, which is the critical value, minus Fx max equal to 0. F cosine theta, I am looking for this F, but I don't have Fx max, is equal or minus Fx max. What is Fx max? According to what I said there, if it's given the coefficient of friction. Mu s Fn, or mu s n. So minus mu s, normal force, equal to 0. Do you have the normal force in this situation? What will be the normal force? How can we find it?
Is it 100?
No. You are pushing downward. So how can we find any particular force in physics? What did I say? This algorithm. So if you don't have, you have to follow the algorithm to find the normal force. What will be the normal force? Along x or along y?
Along Y.
Along y. What are the forces along y?
Normal force.
Normal force